Today, I am building the strongest possible raid team in solo leveling. After all, the normal rules of solo leveling used to be as following. No matter the rank of the gate, no matter the strength of the hunters, all raid parties need to be comprised of at least 10 individual hunters. Of course, this rule was indeed bent for the sake of Sung Jin Woo in the later stages of the manhwa, but let's suppose this did not actually happen. How would the strongest 10-member squad look like? Well, I'll go through every hunter type in solo leveling and choose only the strongest possible candidate. And at the end of the video, we'll be left with the strongest raid team in solo leveling's history. This squad would even crush any of the 9 monarchs without even breaking a sweat. But before we begin, a few ground rules. Number 1, monarchs, rulers, and beasts will not be considered. Only hunters, even if they do have the help from the rulers or monarchs. That still counts, and thus these candidates are eligible to be selected. Number 2, obviously we can only use each character once. Otherwise, this list would be just 10 Sung Jin Woos. Number 3, we must add 1 hunter from each hunter type, meaning a healer, a mage, a fighter, a tanker, an assassin, and a ranger. This leaves us with another 4 empty spots that can be filled with any other hunter. In these 4 spots, we will have 3 bonus places, and of course, on top, we will have the leader of the operation. Number 4, we can add any character we want from any timeline. Why did we add this rule? Well, you'll see in a bit. Number 5, Sung Jin Woo takes only 1 spot, and thus his shadows do not count as an additional entry in the 10-man squad. He can summon them, but we assume this is just part of his power. Let's start with the position that is absolutely necessary for every raid squad, the healer. Surprisingly, we only saw 4 healers throughout the solo leveling manhwa, and these are Liu Zhigang, that is a B rank healer, Jong Yerim, that is an A rank healer, Akari Shimizu, that is an S rank healer, and Min Byung-yu, that is also an S rank healer. Out of these 4 options, it's obvious that the 2 main candidates are the Japanese Akari Shimizu and the Korean Min Byung-yu. When it comes to Akari Shimizu, her screen time was limited to the Jeju Island raid, despite her being praised and her abilities being recognized by even the strongest Japanese S rank hunter, Goto Ryuji. The fact remains that we did not really see much of her. When it comes to Min Byung-yu now, on the other hand, he did showcase more abilities, and he did seem to be a bit stronger and more skilled than his Japanese counterpart. His healing magic was so advanced that he could basically bring Hunter Chomp back from the dead. He could use buff magic to make the hunters next to him even stronger. He could use disguise, and he was even stated to have the fighting capabilities of even an A-rank hunter, something that's not the case for the rest of healers, as normally they are very weak when it comes to combat ability. After all, healers are meant to be healing people and not actually fight in the front lines, even though that normally should have been the end of it. Here is where it gets tricky. As you know, there were 5 national level hunters that were given this title after successfully helping defeat Kamish, a monster so strong that it could literally destroy the whole world without the intervention of these 5 individuals. Well, one of those 5 national level hunters was a healer. His name not even mentioned. Given that the 5 S-rank hunters who killed Kamish were each given the authority equal to that of a nation, it's fair to say that this hunter would probably be a better option than Min Byung-yu. However, since we don't even know his name, I think it's better to give that place to Min Byung-yu instead. Okay, it's obvious that we're off to a great start. However, there's still 9 positions left to cover, and the next one is the fighter. Here, there are indeed quite a lot of known fighters in the story, 13 to be precise. 1 D-rank Kim Sung-shik, that is obviously out of the equation. 2 A-rank Hanakawa and Woo Jin-chul, that despite being incredibly strong, are also out of the equation. Why? Well, because there are 9 different S-rank fighters. The list includes the Japanese Atsushi Kumamoto, Tatsumi Fujishima, Kane Tawata, Kenzo Tanaka, Minoru Hoshino, and Goto Ryuji. There are 3 Korean S-rank fighters, Hwan Dong-soo, that later on became Greed, Cha Hei-in, and Baek Yun-ho. And finally, the strongest hunter in China, Liu Zhigang. From the Japanese hunters, Goto Ryuji is obviously the strongest. And when it comes to Korea, now all 3 of them are around the same level. But which of these 4 should we choose? Thankfully, we don't have to think about it long enough, because the Chinese hunter, Liu Zhigang, is stronger than all of them. He is both one of the 5 national level hunters, as well as a ruler's vessel. He is so strong that he was considered the 2nd strongest hunter in the world. That is, of course, before Sung Jin Woo shook the world with his power. As the vessel of a ruler and a national level hunter, Zhigang is one of the strongest hunters in the world. He was also the strongest hunter in Asia until Jin Woo surpassed him in strength and was noted to be vastly superior to Goto Ryuji, Japan's strongest hunter. Zhigang can move at immense speeds, as displayed by how he was able to swiftly behead a giant before it even had a chance to counter his attack. He had immense strength, ability to fire off explosive energy blasts with the swing of his sword, and even access to ruler's authority. It's fair to say, Zhigang is an important addition to the team. Moving on to the Rangers, here our options are quite limited. Or should I say, we don't even have an option to begin with. You see, there was only one option, Lim Tae-gyu, a Korean S-rank hunter who specializes in archery magic. One of his most important assets is his enhanced durability, as proven by how he was able to retain consciousness and get back up after getting slugged in the face by the Ant King. He can instantaneously create magic arrows from his hands, and let me tell you, these arrows pack a good punch, as they were able to not only damage the interior of the Korean hunter's gym with little trouble, but also easily easily pierce through the Ant Queen's skin. Finally, Lim is such a skilled archer that he is able to deliver precise shots to his opponent's weak spots whenever he is given a chance. Despite our lack of options, I'm not really complaining. We still added an S rank to the team. Next, we have the assassin spot. Here, again, we have very limited options. 2, to be precise. The first is Kang Taechi, a Korean B rank hunter, and Ipei Izawa, a Japanese S rank hunter. So, yeah, our option here is quite obvious. Despite not having seen much from Ipei, we did see his impressive ability to move at tremendous speeds. If you recall, Ipei was able to travel so fast that he was seen as practically flying across Jeju Island. Given that he is an S rank hunter, it's also given that he has the standard stealth ability that was stated to be the default ability of all assassins. This skill allows the user to physically blend in with their surroundings and hide all traces of their presence, essentially turning themselves both physically and magically invisible. So far, we've added 4 members in our squad, 3 S-rank hunters and another S-rank hunter that is also one of the 5 national level hunters. Let's continue to see how much stronger this raid party can become. Next, we have the tanker. For this spot, there are 8 candidates. The first is the D-rank hunter Liu Zhigang. There are 2 C-rank hunters, Yoon Ki-jung and Hwang Dong-suk, 3 A-rank hunters, Kim Chul, that later on became Iron, Bak Dong-soo, and Sun Ki-hoon. Naturally, none of them is an actual candidate because we still have 2 S-rank hunters. The first one is the Korean Ma Dong-wook and the American Thomas Andre. As his title of the #1 hunter in the world, naturally, we have to go with Thomas Andre. Once again, Thomas Andre is both one of the 5 national level hunters as well as a ruler's vessel. He was literally able to hold his own ground against the Beast Monarch. So yeah, this dude is surely no joke, and as a result, he is surely the best candidate for this spot. And next, we have the mage spot that has 7 named candidates. 2 Korean C-rank hunters, Cho Kyu-won and Song Chi-yu, 1 B-rank hunter, Bak Hee-jin, 1 A-rank hunter, Gina, and another 3 S-rank hunters. The first is the Russian Yuri Orlov, the second is the Japanese Kei, and the third is Choi Jong-in. Without saying that Kei is weak, I tend to lean more towards Choi Jong-in, that was dubbed as, quote, the ultimate soldier, and Yuri Orlov that Japan immediately turned to when they had to deal with a dungeon break in Tokyo. Even though either of them would be a good option, here I would like to use a trump card and say that I would go with another option, Siddhartha Bachchan. You see, despite having no image for Siddhartha, we do know that the Indian hunter was ranked at number 4 in the World Hunters ranking, and he was also both one of the 5 national level hunters and a ruler's vessel. It's true that we don't know much about him, but it is estimated that the hunter is a mage type. If that's true, then there's no other option for the mage position other than him. Having filled all the specific hunter type positions, we now move to the most exciting part of the video, the 3 bonus positions, and later on, the leader of this raid. For the first bonus position, we will add none other than Sung Il-hwan, aka Jin Woo's father. Even before becoming a ruler's vessel, Hwan was an S-rank hunter, one of the first in Korea, actually. However, due to the fact that the ranking system didn't exist at that time, he was never recognized by the public for his strength. 10 years before the events of the main storyline, everything went wrong when Il-hwan got trapped inside a dungeon during a raid, leaving his family to presume him dead and his wife to raise their children on her own. Before he could die of starvation, however, Il-hwan was found by the rulers, who made him one of their 7 vessels and gave him the mission of killing the new Shadow Monarch, who was soon to be born. As he didn't have a way to escape back home, Il-hwan had no choice but to accept their demands. However, upon finding out that the Shadow Monarch was actually his own son, he decided to fight alongside his son against the other monarchs. Since this now aligned with the ruler's interests, both father and son Sung were on the ruler's side. But how strong was Hwan? Well, let me tell you, he's probably the strongest addition we have had so far in the video. After Jin Woo killed Queresha and 2 surviving monarchs attempted to finish Jin Woo off for good, Il-hwan jumped in and slammed his foot into Rakan's face, sending him flying into the Frost Monarch and causing the 2 of them to crash through several buildings. Fighting against 2 monarchs at the same time? Yeah, this dude is the definition of built different. I guess this runs in the family, huh? Even though Hwan was later overpowered by the 2 monarchs, well, his son stepped up and finished the job for good. For the second bonus spot, well, let's not get too far from the Sung family because we are now adding Sung Suho, Jin Woo's son. As the son of the Shadow Monarch, Suho is one of the strongest humans alive. By the time he was in high school, he had already far surpassed the average S-rank hunter in power and was already so strong at that point that only Jin Woo could defeat him in a one-on-one battle. By erasing his memories, Jin Woo took Suho in secret quests every now and then to polish his body and skills. Suho was put against all of his father's shadows, and even though some of the strongest shadows were not fighting at full strength, Suho managed to defeat every one that was put in his way. With more training and guidance from Jin Woo, Suho could very much surpass even his own father. For the third bonus spot, we have 3 different candidates, all of which being vessels of a ruler: the American Christopher Reed, the Brazilian Jonas, and finally the Korean chairman Go Gun-hee. For Go Gun-hee, we will assume he is in his prime in order to make this even more interesting. Let's compare Jonas and Christopher Reed for starters. As for Jonas, he was one of the strongest hunters in the world. Unfortunately, the full scale of his powers were never put on display, as he was killed in an off-screen fight. What we do know, however, is that he held the number 6 in the world's hunter rankings. Now, how about Christopher Reed? Well, we don't know much about him either, but what we do know is that he was number 3 in the world's hunter rankings. So, in the very least, it's fair to assume he was stronger than Jonas, which leaves us with the task to rank who is stronger between Christopher Reed and Prime Go Gun-hee. You see, when we met Go Gun-hee, he was an old man that was surely not at his prime days. But was he weak? Not even close. As a vessel of a ruler, Gun-hee was one of the strongest hunters in the world, and easily the second strongest hunter in Korea after Jin Woo. However, his old age prevented him from using his powers to their max and fighting for prolonged periods of time. On the last day of the International Guild Conference back in America, Gun-hee was still working at his office late at night. Just before he was about to head home, he suddenly detected some kind of barrier around him and was caught off guard when the Frost Monarch suddenly appeared out of thin air on a couch on the other side of the room. Although he quickly deduced that he wouldn't be able to win, Gun-hee refused to go down without a fight and unleashed his powers in order to buy enough time for Jin Woo to arrive. Although he was able to fight evenly with the Frost Monarch at the start, his body eventually hit its limit and left him wide open for the Frost Monarch to fatally stab him right through the chest. Get where I'm going with this? Even though he was old, he could still fight a monarch on equal ground. And the only reason he was not able to go toe-to-toe with him all the way to the end was because his body was not able to withstand his own powers. If he was in his prime days, which is the exact form we are considering, then his fight with the Frost Monarch could have gone a completely different path. He had immense strength, durability, and speed. I mean, he was strong enough to easily deflect an energy blast from the Frost Monarch with his bare hand. He was able to remain conscious for a significant amount of time after the Frost Monarch stabbed him through the chest, and even gather enough strength to fling a fireball at the latter, only missing by a hair's breadth. And when it comes to speed, he was able to keep up with the Frost Monarch in their brief battle and proved to be agile enough to even dodge some of the latter's attacks from point-blank range. Now, when compared with Christopher Reed, this becomes very difficult to rule. That's because Reed had to fight against 3 monarchs at the same time when he was being ambushed by them. So we don't really have an equal measurement to compare the two. If I had to pick only one, then I would probably go with Chairman Gun-hee. But at the end of the day, this is purely speculative. Let us know who you think is stronger in the comments down below, Christopher Reed or Prime Go Gun-hee. And finally, we reach the last spot on our 10-member team, the leader of the raid. Now, who should we choose? I mean, this is quite a difficult question, right? I'm just messing with you. We all know it's Sung Jin Woo. By the end of the series, Jin Woo is so strong that he can literally defeat all the other 8 monarchs on his own without any help from anyone, other than his shadows, of course. As the perfect shadow monarch, Sung Jin Woo commands multiple beasts that are literally stronger than anyone in this 10-member raid. Igris, Beru, Kamish, Belion, those are just some of the strongest shadows Sung Jin Woo has, and I seriously doubt anyone here can defeat these shadows on their own, let alone 10 million of them, while they also instantly regenerate on the spot with the help of Sung Jin Woo through the consumption of his own now endless mana. And that was only what his shadows can do. What about the legend himself? As the second Shadow Monarch, Jin Woo possesses tremendous physical strength. Even before obtaining his true power, he was strong enough to punch a large hole through the statue of God's face and beat Thomas Andre, one of the 5 national level hunters, to the brink of death, all with just his bare hands. His speed is off the charts. He can regenerate and heal himself. He can constantly level up and get stronger even during battle. He can create an armor around his body. He has an abundance of incredibly overpowered weapons, including daggers, swords, or even magical items that can enhance his or his shadow's abilities. By simply stabbing an opponent, he can use paralysis, debuff, and pretty much cause any kind of insane and highly destructive damage to them. Stealth, bloodlust, quicksilver, mutilation, dagger rush, ruler's authority, dragon's fear, shadow extraction, shadow exchange, and even domain expansion. Well, it's not exactly called domain expansion per se, but yeah, it's called Monarch's Domain. All of these are just a few of his insane abilities. With Jin Woo as their leader, it's fair to say that this raid team could take absolutely any opponent on without even breaking a sweat. Check out this video where we rank and explain all the main shadows of Sung Jin Woo. Go on, check it out!